Sara had lived in the dark since birth. The world was a mosaic of sounds, smells, and tactile sensations. She had learned to orient herself with surprising certainty, to read Braille, to recognize people by their voices. Sara loved the park. She loved the smell of cut grass, the singing of birds, the rustling of leaves under her feet. But above all, she loved that precise spot under the old oak tree. Or at least it was that for her. Oak. In her imagination was oak. One day, while she was sitting on her favorite bench, she heard a male voice. He was reading a book aloud. His voice was deep, not melodious, but it spread through the trees. Somehow it had made her feel uneasy. She felt strange, scared, and attracted at the same time. Curious, she slowly approached until she could hear him better. His voice transported her to a warm world made of adventures, emotions, and lucid desires. She listened to the story that man, without realizing it, was reading aloud. She felt a little uncomfortable, blushed, but decided to thank him. "Continue," she said to the man, "continue." He, noticing those thick black glasses, understood immediately. He continued reading. So they started talking, discovering that they had many passions in common. They were sharing the same bench, keeping each other company, happy to do so, without anything else being needed. Then he had a warm, rough, and enveloping voice. His words painted vivid scenarios in her mind, making her live a thousand adventures. From that day, and the ones that followed, they became inseparable, tied by an invisible thread woven of stories and later confidences, confessions, and even silences that said everything, because they knew their meaning. One day, months, many months, he soon became her rock, her guide in the darkness. She did the same, putting all of herself into it, until that passionate kiss. She had practically jumped on him. He returned the kiss a little shyly. It was love. The doctors announced that an experimental procedure could restore her sight. It was fate. Sara was overcome by a mixture of excitement and fear. The idea of seeing the world was fascinating, but at the same time terrifying. The operation was a success. When she opened her eyes, the world was an explosion of colors, shapes, and lights. It was as if she had been born again. With her new sight came a new awareness of herself and the world around her. At first, everything was too intense, too beautiful. But as the days passed, Sara began to explore the world with new eyes. She saw the ocean, the starry sky, the faces of the people she loved. And she saw herself reflected in a mirror for the first time. It was just a mirror. He was so happy for her, but he felt like he was losing his love. The girl he knew, the sweet girl at the park, who asked only for one more chapter, one more kiss, more time together. She seemed to have moved away. Their conversations, once deep and intimate, now seemed superficial. Sara, accustomed to describing things with precise words, found herself short of words to express the beauty she saw. It was always and only the mirror. She loved looking at herself. After all, she was a beautiful woman, why not? One day, while they were walking on the bench, he took her hand. "You are more beautiful than ever, but lately I feel distant. You spend all your time putting on makeup and looking at yourself in the mirror." Sara looked into his eyes, and even though she hadn't paid any attention, she answered him out of inertia, with a nod. A small yes. "You're right." She wasn't listening to him anymore. He had become a friend, an old friend. She felt as if she was living two parallel lives, the old and the new, in the world she knew and another in the world she was just starting to discover. After a long and painful reflection, Sara made a difficult decision. She realized that, in order to grow and discover herself, she needed to explore this new one alone. She decided to leave him. It wasn't a heartbreaking goodbye, nor a difficult one. That ordinary man immediately understood that the girl in the park no longer existed. She had opened her eyes not only to the outside world, but also to herself. One day, the man returned to the park. It was their park, the park near the hospital in their city. It started to rain, and he took refuge under that big tree, the big oak. He hugged the coat he was wearing to his chest. Yes, a doctor. He was the surgeon who had operated on Sarah. She had never known it. He was the man who had given her sight, love, even given her the mirror she loved to use so much. He remained there, sitting in the mud. He didn't read anything, because he had nothing left to give, not even for himself.